Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. This is the What is Unsupported Software webinar. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jason, our Cyber Senior Underwriting Manager. So Jason, take it away.
Thank you, Jillian. I want to first start off by thanking you all for your offering of time this afternoon and joining us for our latest installment of our monthly cyber webinar series. This month, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the concept of what exactly is unsupported software. This was a topic that we hit on briefly last month when we were talking about different exclusions and different coverage conditions that may surprise, if you will, both insured and agency in the cyber insurance policies. Given light of the recent WannaCry viral event, I really felt that the unsupported software topic deserved a little bit deeper of a dive and its own webinar. So here we go. I kind of want to touch briefly on what are we going to talk about today? If this slide will move. There we go. All right. So this is just kind of a brief outline of what we're going to go through today. Why are we really even talking about this? The surprising 3 primary stages to unsupported software, and then discuss a little bit on the specific cyber events and how the exclusion may or may not have impacted specific insureds, and then of course open the floor to questions. If anybody has any questions as we go through, please do not hesitate to type in. Jillian will try and aggregate all of them, and we'll try and address them towards the end.
Jason, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. I did get a couple notes that the audio is difficult to hear. I don't know if it's the speaker or what's happening, but it's a little fuzzy.
I'll get really close to it, and I'll try and go loudly. Is that any better, or is it?
Okay, that's a little better. Yeah.
All right, I'll try and get close to the phone. So the WannaCry viral event of May of last month in May kind of brought the topic and perils of the unsupported software to the forefront. So what WannaCry was, it was a really unique global cyber event that exploited vulnerabilities in older software systems, Windows 7 primarily, in order to both infect the individual computers and also spread. It compromised an element of the software that allows the computer to communicate with other computers in a network functionality to basically infect. We're talking about this specifically because many cyber policies either carry an unsupported software exclusion or a condition, making this an important topic for cyber insurance discussion. So the obvious question is, why would software ever go unsupported? There we go. Many products that you purchase, ranging from cars to dishwashers to other primary daily use products, they don't simply receive an ending of support from the manufacturer. So why would software be unique in this approach? And the truth is, there's a couple of reasons that drive a software developer into unsupporting their software. The first one is the unbelievably rapid evolution of hardware. The computer functionalities and computer capabilities are evolving at a pace that exceeds almost anything else in human existence. And as the hardware evolves, older software packages simply don't keep up and are unable to either maximize the hardware functionality or simply don't work on the new hardware platforms. There's also a rapid evolution of other software capabilities, ranging from networking ability, storage capabilities, and also user experience improvements, such as graphical and sound improvements that older software simply doesn't keep up with and can degrade the user experience. There's also an unbelievably rapid evolution of user demands, preferences, and demands and preferences. What we expect of a computer today is completely different than what we expected of a computer 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and certainly 10 years ago. So as software ages, it no longer can keep up with the modern demands. And if you are not creating a favorable user experience, then they're going to be they're going to give negative reviews, or they're going to move on to a new manufacturer. Of course, that's the death knell of any company. So anyhow, all 3 of these components lead to demands that simply exceed the original performance capabilities of the original product. and no amounts of updates or patches can allow it to keep up with the modern demands. So as a result, software manufacturers try and create a little bit of a stick to motivate the computer users to modify, to change their platforms to the more modern and newer software packages. So the concept of unsupported software is actually a pretty complex concept, and it really does depend on the software itself and the developer. Obviously a custom developed software platform is going to have software package is going to have a very clear end of life, and it may involve a strict end of use entirely, or if you purchase the license, you might be able to continue to use, just no longer have manufacturer support. And we're going to focus primarily on mass market software, and more specifically Microsoft, and what their experience is for the unsupported software. And there are, so for Microsoft, there are 3 primary stages to what unsupported software involves. The first one is what they call end of mainstream support. The next is the end of extended support. And then the third, which is a little bit more limited, is called the ceasing of updates for specific platforms. So we'll go in a little bit into detail of each of these steps. So for the end of mainstream support, this one is, for example, the primary example for the end of mainstream support that most folks are going to be aware of is going to be Windows 7. And what this means is that even as bugs are found, or as glitches or errors are found, it's not going to be fixed unless it poses a significant security risk. The software will continue to work, but as non-security issues arise, you will have to either just simply live with it or develop in-house workarounds. There are no new features or product tweaks. So as new graphical new graphical services improve, let's say with Adobe or other user experience improvements, it's not going to work well or jive with. And there's no more free help or support to be provided. So if you call Microsoft on their 1-800 number and say, I have a Windows 7 operating system, they're going to say, we're very sorry, but there's nothing we can do for you. During the period of mainstream support, you can pay for additional support from manufacturer, notably Microsoft. And of course, there are going to be security patches pushed forward. So as mentioned, Windows 7 entered in the period of the ending of mainstream support back on January 13th of 2015. The WannaCry virus, there was actually a patch for it released on March 14th of 2017. The virus itself came out in May of 2017. It's kind of an interesting fact that of all impacted computers, 98% of the infected computers were using Windows 7 operating systems. And of those 98% of computers that were impacted, the vast majority were using Windows 7 64-bit, which is a corporate load, meaning a corporate preferred load, meaning it's not something that you would buy for home use. It was something that was purchased for corporate or network implementation across their corporate images. And one of the limitations of the ending of mainstream support is that patches for these old operating systems don't jive well with the newer software packages that are installed on corporate loads. So before a corporation can install that patch, they have to test it. They have to make sure that it's compatible with their network, compatible with their other software, compatible with other security before they can implement it. And that time delay of the testing is what proved, for lack of a term, fatal for many of those impacted by the WannaCry virus. So following a period of mainstream support, the ending of mainstream support, you now enter into a period of the ending of extended support. So this is usually about 5 years after the ending of mainstream support. Windows XP is the most notable software package that has entered this category. And what ending of extended support means is that even security issues will not receive patches or fixes. So even if they have discovered a problem that will cause a security risk to the user, patches or fixes will not be issued. The software, of course, will continue to work, but you are functionally on your own, and the use of software will place you at risk. So as mentioned, Windows XP that entered into the period of ending of extended support back on April of 2014. There was a pretty unique experience where Microsoft actually pushed a patch to fix Microsoft XP, Windows 8, and even Windows Server 2003 against the WannaCry virus event back in May. And then, because there was what they believe a systemic risk to all computer users. If Windows XP continued to perpetuate the WannaCry virus, it could have impacted other users of more modern and more current software packages as the virus evolved and continued to spread. So they went ahead, and even though that they have ended the extended support, they pushed out a patch to protect. And then again this month, actually just literally last week, they pushed another batch of security fixes addressing a variety of vulnerabilities that had been discovered. This is pretty unique, and I don't know that I would expect it to continue, but I just wanted to point that out. So the next stage, this is kind of more of a focused ending of support, and that is the ceasing of updates to specific platforms. This will move. Okay. All right. So the ending of specific updates to specific platforms is a targeted. It basically allows for software developers to deliver targeted product improvements to primary software packages that are used by the users. And what it means is they will no longer update specific products on the older platform versions. So the obvious example is Internet Explorer. As of January 12th, 2016, only the most current version of Internet Explorer, that is IE 11, will continue to receive updates and fixes. It's important to note that various loads of Windows 7 and Windows XP will not work with Internet Explorer 11. So you have to use an older, now wholly unsupported version of Internet Explorer in order to use that software, opening yourself up to potential security risks and problems. The other example is Google Chrome. They simply ended support of the Google Chrome browser for Windows XP. So if you utilize Windows XP, only the oldest version of Google Chrome will function. And older versions of Internet Explorer and Google Chrome are simply not going to work well with a variety of modern websites and web services. So what's the user experience with unsupported software? It's not like life support, where when you enter into a period of either ending of mainstream or extended support, it doesn't flatline the computer, it doesn't render it fully inoperable for the users. So the vast majority of users will log in every day and be wholly unaware of the potential peril that they're facing. The experience for a software package user that has entered the period of the end of mainstream support will generally lead to errors and unsteady performance and user experience. So as you're seeking to go to newer websites, newer web services, if you log into various portals, their security features will not jive well with your operating system, and that can create errors or problems. While it's not a systemic problem, it requires the creation of go-arounds or break fixes, if you will, to customize to allow you to continue to work. Patch delivery can involve significant delays requiring research and testing due to incompatibility with newer software packages. As mentioned, that was why the majority of Windows 7 operating systems were infected by the WannaCry virus. The IT teams were simply still testing that patch for compatibility and customizing it to work within their specific loads. In the meantime, the WannaCry virus kind of came through and caught them unawares and unprepared. Security issues will still receive the attention it deserves. It just receives the aforementioned delay. The end of extended support, this delivers a significant impact to user experience with incompatibility issues abound. I have an older Dell Latitude 620 that is my old this is my old corporate laptop. It still utilizes Windows XP, and it hardly works with anything anymore. It's basically just it's a home server for storage of images and sounds. So once you enter into the period of extended support, there is significant security risk, and there really is a significant impact to the user experience. So most folks aren't using Windows XP anymore. With the ceasing of updates to specific platforms, it can really cause incompatibility issues, and it can really impact the user experience and joy, and make it not so functional for use. So the WannaCry, the recent cyber event, the WannaCry virus, and the policy condition impact. So one of the challenges with the unsupported software condition is that there really is not, it's not well defined. I've never seen a single policy that defines what unsupported software is. Does that include only end of extended support? Does that include end of mainstream support? Does that include the ending of the platform-specific updates? It's not defined. So there can really, the use of those unsupported software can really create a peril for the insureds. So the WannaCry virus, it was designed to exploit a recently discovered vulnerability in Microsoft software. We can all thank the NSA for discovering the vulnerability in part of their hack packs that was released to the world. As mentioned earlier, 98% of the impacted users were Windows 7 users. So the vast majority of the infected WannaCry virus computers were utilizing an unsupported software package, and the exclusion or condition could have caused significant coverage issues. Every Windows 7 user, and again, part of the post-mortem analysis of the WannaCry viral events, all impacted Windows 7 users did not have the recent update or patch implemented to their software. Then again, the kind of going a little bit further into the cyber exclusion condition and why I think it really does deserve a significant attention. So as mentioned, the term unsupported software is not defined in an insurance policy. So if a compromise were to have arisen using Windows 7, even though if you had a pretty current firewall, you had a good IT team, you had encryption and yada, 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 this exclusion could have precluded cover in full, and it would have been a bit of a surprise to the majority of users. Many policies do carry this coverage condition. Make sure you discuss it and evaluate it with your clients. The Schinner Cyber Protection Package does not have this coverage condition or exclusion. I don't find the exclusion or condition of unsupported software to be unacceptable. I think that insurance carriers, we all have the opportunity to determine what risks we do wish to cover and what risks we do not wish to cover. And many reinsurance carriers and many primary insurance carriers simply don't want to be covering risks that, for lack of a term, didn't need to exist. So applying this condition, they're simply also trying to back up the software developers to deliver that stick to push their users into the more modern, more safe, and more improved software packages. With our cyber protection package, we are insuring and covering, for the most part, smaller insureds who may have older software packages, and so as a result, we felt that it's a risk that we needed to deliver and provide to our insureds. If you have any questions on this particular cover or peril, please do not hesitate to reach out to any of us, myself, Mark, or Dennis. This picture goes up. We're always available to answer any of your questions that you might have. We also are always happy to pass on, if we don't have the answers, we can pass it along to our data response team and ask them for their input or advice. And with that, I'll just open up the floor to any questions that anybody might have. It's just not moving, sorry. Okay.
Hey, Jason, a question did just come in. How do you start this conversation with an insured and connect it to the cyber policy?
Good question. So if you have an insured that has an existing cyber policy, the first step obviously will be to review for any conditions or exclusions related to the unsupported software. But if it's a prospective insured, or if it's somebody that is completing the application, many of the applications will include a question about the use of unsupported software. And if they were to ask, so what does this necessarily mean? You would just simply counter and respond with I'm trying to think of asking what is the primary operating system that they might utilize. Ask if they have any custom software loads that they might utilize. Ask if any of them have reached or exceeded their support life timeline. And if they are utilizing any software, let's say if they're utilizing Windows 7 as their primary operating system, ask if they are looking to merge to Windows 10 or Windows 8, and what kind of timeline they might have. If the timeline is something that they're going to be doing prior to the launching of a cyber policy, then it's not necessarily an issue. If they are if it's not going to be happening for a while, say they're a larger insured and they have a corporate load that is a Windows 7 load, I would recommend going to, if they have a cyber policy, amending that cyber condition to include cover for the unsupported software of mainstream and at the ending of mainstream support. So it's defined clearly so that the use of Windows 7 is still covered if the carrier is amenable. If they're not amenable, then I would recommend finding a policy that will contemplate their use of that software package.
Okay, another question. Is it fair to assume that Windows 7 will be in extended support by 2020, 5 years after the January 2015 purchase?
Yes, they've actually they have announced that the ending of extended support will occur in 2020 for Microsoft Windows 7. The offering of Windows 10, for at least for personal use, is generally a free upgrade, and it's a good step to move forward to the newest, latest, greatest, and more supported corporate software packages.
Okay, another question. How does all of this apply when people talk about the cloud?
The cloud software packages, one of the values of the cloud software package, especially is generally it's a software as a service or software package as a service. So it is going to be utilizing the more current and most recent versions of software. So the use, the peril of the use of an unsupported software package is going to be reduced significantly. So it shouldn't impact significantly a corporate user or insured who has a full cloud software package.
Yeah, Jason, jumping in, I would say if you add to the mix on that, if someone's on Windows 95, Windows XP, Windows 7, if they're looking at the possibility of transitioning, the cloud can be a nice solution, especially when their current IT operations are already constrained with keeping the business going, the business as usual. The nice part about the cloud migration is what it's referred to usually is that you get to that most recent software version, typically is where the host is going to work from, but then also the patches automatically happen and there's no need to be aware of patches and whatnot, and so every single day the most recent aspect of that particular version of the software is included in most circumstances on a cloud after a cloud migration. Actually, it's worthwhile while we're on that topic to mention our data breach coach was speaking to a group of brokers 2 years ago and said, actually, if I ever start my own law firm, if I go out and start, Mullen Incorporated or Mullen LLC, I would do it in the cloud because I don't have to worry about having the most recent software. I don't have to worry about all the patches. I don't have to employ a large IT team to keep on top of everything. It's a great option for me. Literally 7 months later that he announced he was starting his own firm, and they did put the firm on the cloud. So just from someone who walks people through breaches all the time, it's a little bit of perspective that may be helpful in conversations if this comes up when you're talking about business risk on the whole for an organization, especially for anyone who bills themselves as the risk management team for their small and medium-sized insurers.
Excellent point.
There is a follow-up question on the cloud. Is it possible to cloud migrate a PC's operating system and browser apps or just client and server apps?
I don't.
Too technical of a question.
I'm an insurance guy. No, I don't know. Probably an IT guy would be a better person to talk to on that. I mean, you can.
Well,
Yeah.
what we can do, I think, it might be good for us to take that back and send out a note on it. But typically when you talk about migrating to the cloud, for the most part, what you're doing is there are when they talk about the cloud, it's just remote servers elsewhere is hosting the platform. So it's remote servers that also provide some redundancy in most cases where one server fails, it kicks over to another one. But it's putting the platform in a remote location, so it's not usually hosting your own servers anymore. So that's a lot of that cloud migration. Some pieces can be migrated to the cloud, but even when you migrate like a technical piece off to the cloud, there's still a server elsewhere that's running that part of the organization. So it probably would be best for us to grab that, take it offline, and send an email response individually.
Okay, no other questions have been sent in. We are at the 30-minute mark, so it looks like we are good to go. If anybody has any other questions, Jason and Matt's email address and phone numbers are right there, so feel free to reach out. So if no further questions come through, then thank you all very much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.